Welcome to the Shakaama Live Show with your host, Shakaama. I wanted to talk about something a little bit lighter, yet probably just as serious. What if I told you that a lot of things, as we know it, at least in the Western world, would be completely different if they had not completely stifled this one simple invention. What am I talking about? Jars. There was a man who basically had cornered the market on transporting ready-made food in jars from the kitchen, the industrial kitchen, I guess, to your home. And he had put it in jars. Well, if the story is correct from what I heard, so he did not cease to keep refining and refining and refining and refining the jar component of transportation of foods to your kitchen. And that is if even if it's just diced up bananas or some so we're talking about the 1800s, might have been the 1600s, but I'm thinking the 1800s. And so you can imagine that they were transporting goods from the nice warm climates where food is abundant and far more nutritious, because a lot of the fruits and vegetables that come from the warmer climates, Africa, are far more nutritious for you, and they stop stuff like scurvy and stuff like that. Well, the powers that be did not want to keep investing in these jars, because at the end of the day, of course, a jar made out of glass, for the most part, will probably break or something like that. Anyway, and they had come up with an invention of aluminum cans or metal cans that they could put something in, pack it with a whole bunch of preservative, seal it up, and transport it. No breakage, so they don't lose any of the product. And it is basically the same when it reached your kitchen. So threw away the jars, got rid of the jars, went with the metal cans, which we now call aluminum cans today. I don't know if they were made out of aluminum originally. But here's the problem. His invention and his innovations were headed towards a world where you could have perfectly preserved foodstuffs inside of the... You want to say something? He's down here talking, literally under my feet. That's my dog, if you don't know. He was headed towards a world where you could have perfectly preserved foodstuffs without any additives. Now, I want you to pause right there, and I want you to think to yourself, no additives, no preservatives, no extra ingredients into my jar of whatever? No added ingredient, none of this psychological torment that we go through with the foodstuffs that we eat today. And then I dare say that would also impact on all those people who are having a lot of health issues, a tremendous amount of health issues, because they're eating stuff that is not conducive to human health. But it's in our food. It's in our food. So I want you to think about this tiny, tiny, and then we should then maybe, if we like this video enough, maybe we could start the conversation going back to what was this guy inventing that he could perfectly preserve foods for some time. The whole idea of his refining and refining and refining stuff was that he was seeking to preserve food for longer and longer and longer periods based off of the invention of the jar itself, not the food inside. What was the method that he was using? It had nothing to do with the food inside. The rule number one was don't mess with the food inside. So then it's the jar and the invention of the jar and the refinement of the jar invention that he was concentrating on to make sure that the food was fresh and was lasting longer and longer and longer, so that it could travel from further and further, all the way from India to England, right? Further and further away, last longer periods, so you could get more and more nutritious stuff. Because now, if we look at the health industry, the health food industry, and all of the cool stuff that's going on in the health food industry, a lot of the stuff comes from India, Africa, South America, the Far East, right? So now we can get all of that stuff perfectly preserved, no additives in our food. So then you think about that, then you're going to be healthier. You're not going to have any of these allergies. A lot of the stuff that they're talking about, if you get into allergies, they talk about having allergic reactions to dyes and the preservatives that are in the food that they put in it to make the food look appetizing after it's traveled all the way from China, in a can, right? So maybe through this video that you're watching right now, we can start a conversation. Maybe we could put pressure, if you like this video enough, we can put pressure on the powers that be to say, hey, maybe we should go back to transporting our goods through those jars and taking a look at those inventions, and maybe canned food, the bad PR that canned food has can go away, because we're not going to be using metal cans anymore. We're going to be using jars. So, and we're going to leave plastic alone, which has a whole bunch of chemicals that has estrogen in it, and that's a dietary estrogen, which then impacts men and women very badly, to the point where you have a large increase in estrogen ingested into the body of men and women, and it has the different impacts of estrogen in the body of men and women. Women don't need any more estrogen and dietary estrogen from these very toxic sources like like soy. Very toxic, extremely toxic to humans. Soy is toxic to humans. Believe it or not, forget everything that you've heard. Forget everything that you've heard. Anybody complimenting soy, forget that. It is toxic to humans. Forget all the stuff you hear about, well, but the Asians, no. Forget all of that stuff. So imagine all of that estrogen taken out, all of the estrogen from plastics, as food stuff being in plastics, to have taken that out. So all of the estrogen being eliminated from the American diet, out of the Western male, and so all of the diseases, caused by that, and all those toxins removed from our diet. So imagine then what kind of health that you would have, and what kind of health and what kind of life. Now, of course, that means that the medical industry would be impacted by over probably 50%, if not 70 to 90%, right? There would be a complete decrease of potential harm done to the human body, because then you would be eating perfect food sources, whatever it is. Even if it is burger in a jar, you know, they have burger in a can now. Turkey in a can, turkey in a jar. But then you have just turkey. You don't have turkey with dye number 5 red, a dye number 12 orange in your foodstuffs. So now your kids won't be having all sorts of crazy reactions to them. And this is all because they wanted to go with this cans of transporting food in cans and metal barrels instead of the jars. And he was pushing for pristine food in jars. I play the flamenco guitar for anybody wondering. Preserving pristine food in jars, which of course is far healthier, but instead they wanted to go with all of these preservatives and these dyes and this and that and the other, right? Do me a favor, like the video, crazy as that sounds, like the video. Thank you all for watching.